So again, this is the AI agency to AI transformation partner sort of masterclass webinar. Going to be about 30 minutes of presentation and then a lot of Q&A. And really the whole point here is to go through how to land your first one to $5,000 transformation audit. And instead of doing what I had done in the past as an agency owner, which was competing with every other person who posts on LinkedIn or sends a cold email, offering the same sort of solutions that are productized and commoditized now. So real quick, if I'm going to do a quick show of hands here, um, how much of you guys are currently stuck in sort of that delivery of $2,000, $5,000 products? If you want to go show of hands at that point. Okay. And then who here is just getting started and kind of stuck in the cold outreach phase? Not really sure how to get traction and understand how to get clients at all. So either way, this is the right place for us to be talking. So here's what we're going to cover today. Again, not in super depth. We've got a community for that. Also, I have a lot of content I share on LinkedIn, and we're going to be doing more of these webinars as time goes on. So, one, uh, one of the biggest problems that we ran into and caused us to shift from pure agency into the SaaS space is the AI agency model is unfortunately hitting a little bit of a ceiling. Right now, there is almost zero barrier to entry in this space. And so setting up a LinkedIn page, instantly account, and all of a sudden you are an agency owner. So, and that's awesome for the opportunity, but that creates a lot of noise in the space. And so you've got to find a way to compete and differentiating yourself in the industry. Second thing is the going over the transformation partner model that works. It's a very early time in this space. So there are a lot of unanswered questions. So if I don't know the answer to something, I'm just going to say, look, I don't know. Let's work on it together as we're all kind of figuring this out as we go. The next thing is the exact same framework that we use to deliver audits in days and not weeks, sort of a systematized process. And that was something that a lot of people reached out to me and asked, how do you actually conduct these audits? And so kind of there's two paths. One is the manual version, which I've shared with a lot of you already, but you'll get in this document how to do it with ChatGPT or Claude or your LLM of choice. And the second is going to be through Audity, right? Obviously, that's our product, and so we would hope that it would use it if you find it useful. But you certainly don't have to execute this playbook. So know that. Next thing is how to open the conversations and position yourselves as that transformation partner, as opposed to just a one-off AI salesman, right? Which is kind of the trap a lot of us get into. It's easy to talk about the technology, the solution, the problem, but then you're really not speaking to any one client. You're kind of just blasting out into the universe and hoping that someone finds you. And then the last thing is going to be, again, those tools and the community that makes this scalable, right? So not only just Audity, but obviously our AI transformation partner community, which is free, as well as other resources that are either developed now, or if you guys are looking for something specific, I'm certainly glad to put together anything that I can be helpful. So a little bit about me. I'm Ed Krystosik. Um, I've been an agency owner since February of 2023. I've had a lot of careers in the past. I was a private banker at JP Morgan for almost 10 years in Chicago. I was a top 10 producer. So that was where I cut my teeth on talking to people with money about their problems and convincing them that I was the right person to work with. I've also been a consultant for Big Four consulting firm as an expert, as a resource for other consultants. So, kind of coaching them through certain areas of expertise. I've had a startup in Silicon Valley. Prior to COVID, we had a partnership with Stanford University, the US government, government of Colombia and Kenya. And unfortunately, that project got shut down and the project funding it went bankrupt. And so we had to shut it down. Learned a lot. I made a lot of connections, but a great learning experience. And then obviously pre AI, I'm an old guy like that. We had a agency and consultant arm that did automation and business process improvement without AI. So using Zapier, pre-make, pre-N8N, really Zapier was the only tool, and then trying to cobble together solutions. So when AI came on the scene, it just blew up our opportunities to expand. So that was when we jumped into that space very early. So my journey in the AI agency space, we were doing pretty much what everyone else did, which was selling one-off automations, small trinkets, 800, 1,000, $2,000 sometimes, and it really just wasn't moving the needle. Took a ton of time, and then we had all of the follow-up with the customer, all of the support, and really no ongoing engagement with them. So it just became a delivery nightmare. And then always having to just find new leads every week was, where are we going to find our next kill? So that became exhausting. And then something kind of shifted in me. I was a guest on a podcast, which I love to do, and I'm a guest a lot of times. And the at the end of the podcast, I was like, all right, that was fun. We're gonna move on. And the host, who owned a major law firm in Georgia, said, Ed, I've talked to a lot of AI guys in the past, and you're the first one I talked to that I actually could understand what the heck you were talking about. How do I get a consultation with you? And it kind of took me aback a little bit, because I was like, oh, he doesn't just want to buy something from me, he wants my advice. And that was the moment where kind of things shifted in my mind, and we went all in on the AI transformation audit path. um, we had first sold them a $800 newsletter generator, and then the very next project after doing the audit was a $23,000 video platform, and then a $30,000 physician referral platform. And we have a pipeline of over $100,000 with this firm over the next year planned out on our roadmap. So just switching from that, we sell this one tool, to we consult on your business and try to get you that efficiency, was the big change. So that's where we went into paid audit engagements. And now all of our clients that we bring on, we don't sell one-off tools. We always start with an audit first, and we'll get into how I structure the payments and how I structure sort of the offer. And that allows you to get them to buy in at a very, very low risk, almost zero if you'd like to position it that way, which we did early on, but certainly low risk and high reward for them. So let's talk a little bit about, here's a sip of water here, the problem that we're facing right now. And I guess a lot of you probably also have the same issue. The AI model has, the agency model has a ceiling on it, right? And the hamster wheel you get on is, you start putting in all this time to build these small solutions, chasing leads, and by the time you've really monetized it, you're making 8, 10, $12 an hour, which is not why we're here, right? The solutions that have been commoditized, so your social media management, your lead follow-up, your LinkedIn writers, all that, it's sort of been commoditized. So really there's like 47 or 50 other agencies you may be competing with. And that creates a ton of noise, and it's really hard to stand out. And as an elder millennial myself, I found that I was not great at getting attention. And so my message was being drowned out uh, by users who were digital natives and able to grab that attention right away. So I had to do something a little bit different. The next thing is when you are just doing I automate, we provide AI solutions, you are a salesman at that point, and you're not a solutions provider or a partner, right? So you can be shopped around and, very, very easily critiqued on the delivery. And that's just not going to create something that you can do long term. Again, one and done, no expansion. So as you deliver these products, there might be follow-ups, but you are engaged for one project, you deliver one project, and then you've got to start chasing that lead again cold, right? Not efficient use of your time. And the last thing is simply trading time for money, right? You build a product, you ship a product, you get some money. Do that over and over and over again. You're still spending time doing it. Now you can productize, you can build out a SaaS solution with vibe code. There's a lot of ways you can kind of scale up, but it's not going to be efficient in the long term. So the biggest thing is though is the change to a transformation audit partner consultant. There's a lot of words for it. Is not an entirely new area of work. So if you've been in the agency space or you're just starting out and have some technical background, this is not a huge leap, especially if you have the right tools in your toolbox, right? So now you shift from, instead of delivering the final product for that one, two, $3,000, you're shifting to delivering the roadmap, the audit, the opportunities, the pain points, and all of the things that allow you to then develop those over time. And so you're not just trading your time, you're trading your expertise to then get a pipeline of projects. The next thing is you're going to be working with real companies, right? So if you're doing a one-off social media automation, fine. No large company with a real budget and departments is really going to seek out someone to do like a one-off necessarily. They're going to look for information that they can take up to their stakeholders, to their leadership, to actually put in place for a longer term engagement. So as you're moving from sort of 1, 2, 3 person organizations into sort of medium-sized businesses, this shift is required, right? Because otherwise it's going to be very difficult to get things approved with no justification. Next is you'll be positioned as a strategic advisor, not a vendor. So not only are they coming to you for an AI solution, they may also want you to do some non-AI related automation work, which is perfectly fine because you're just not adding AI to it. So you're expanding your ability to offer products and not just being an AI provider. And so, like I said, your technical expertise is the advantage in this, in that if you can nail the audit and the consulting part, then your dev roadmap is built out for you. You have them pre-bought in, and then you're going to be able to deliver that over time. And that's really where you're going to have that trailing revenue that allows you to scale up your business. So are there any questions at this point? I want to stop and allow anybody to ask questions and kind of jump in here and kind of make this a little bit interactive. Okay, so we have one here. Are you going to cover how the actual audit is done, like the amount of meetings you are having with customers, et cetera? Yes, Robert, we are going to. That's going to be next. We can actually jump down to that. It's only going to be another minute or so before we get there. Craig, thank you. This is what I live. This is what I do. So for me, this is really nothing prepared. It's sort of, I put my thoughts down and I'm sort of sharing it with you. And so let's go ahead and move on into the space here. So real quick, changing some of your language, and that's going to be a big thing here. And I think a lot of the core shift has to come with how you present yourself into the marketplace, right? We know that you can build AI solutions, like that's why you're here. You've learned how to use Make and N8N, vibe code tools, LLMs, all that. That's technical side. But the problem where people get tripped up, and it's a very scary question to be asked, and a lot of people hope clients don't ask, is what is the ROI? What is the internal rate of return? What is the payback period? What is the change management process? How do we get buy-in from leadership? How do we get buy? There are all these business questions, right? So as you're presenting yourself as a partner, as a transformation partner, you need to be prepared to answer more business questions. And the technical questions, they're like, yeah, that's fine, whatever. Just do what you said about the business thing. And the technical is just how you do it. It's not what you do. Right. So again, that's just some language here. I'm going to share all this, so I'm not going to read it to you. But the biggest thing is when you start talking technical to these business people, all they hear is blah, 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 expensive, blah, 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 AI, and it just goes right over their head. So you've got to speak the language of the audience you're turning to. So what does that look like? Things like, we'll reduce your processing time by 60%. They can sell that upstairs. This will save you $180,000 annually on labor costs. They can cash that check. Your team can handle 3 times the lead volume without hiring. Takes a headache off of their plate. They don't have to hire new people, and they can grow. They hit their metrics. They get their bonus. They're happy, right? So aligning your message with their goals is how you win the business, right? So if you're not translating technical capabilities into business value, that's going to be a problem. So let's get in here to this model here. So the AI transformation partner model, it starts with the audit, right? So now we're getting into the audit space here. And it's a structured consulting engagement, and it's going to do a few things. Obviously, you need to have a hands-on understanding of their current operations, right? And this comes from talking to owners, talking to major players in the organization, gathering as many documents as possible. Now, if there's going to be a question around what if they don't have documents, we'll get there. There's a solution for that. Um, that information is then translated into AI and automation opportunities, right? So you've got to find the solution to their problems. Then you've got to do the work of actually calculating their return on investment so they can justify purchasing your hopefully very expensive, but not expensive, very valuable product or service. You lay out the transformation roadmap for them so they have an understanding of where they are, where they're going, and exactly how they get there. So there's no ambiguity on the next step. And then you obviously, then the goal is to deliver that implementation to the specifications that you've agreed upon, right? So that's that's kind of at the core of it. And then you guys can read this. Let's get into the framework. Differentiation of an assessment and an okay. So I'm going to answer a couple questions here. Happy Wednesday from Cosette. The differentiation between an assessment and an audit. I would consider them one and the same, except if you were to consider an assessment as more of a pre-audit. So if you're using a tool like Audity, we have what are called ready links, and those are used as lead magnets. And you can certainly create your own. And it's a AI readiness survey, and it allows you to send out a low friction value add piece to a potential client, or even a pre-engagement with someone who's going to be doing an audit with you, that they can understand their readiness for an AI transformation, right? If they don't have processes in place, if they don't have documentation, if they don't have the support of their management, then perhaps it may be a waste of their funds to do the full audit, right? There may be some early value you can add to them, build that trust, gain that authority, and then circle back to them when they've addressed those. So you could do a mini assessment before going into a full audit. I would say that would be the only real difference that I would see. Differentiating the price between a $1,000 and a $5,000 audit, Robert. Great question. And this goes to the pricing model, which is it can be a bit ambiguous and it can be a bit difficult, but here's how I approach it. If we're going to a smaller organization, SMB, usually for us up to 10 employees, that's going to be a $1,000 audit. But the way we position it is we'll come in, we'll do the audit, and if you choose to implement the roadmap, or at least part of the roadmap, we will credit that towards the the dev work, right? So it's basically a opportunity for them to get either a very valuable piece of information for their business or a very valuable piece of information for their business, and that credited towards doing the work, right? Because in the old agency model, it was the free discovery call, the free audit, and you were doing all this work already, maybe not to the extent of a full paid audit, but you were spending a lot of time. And so now you're simply getting paid for your time as opposed to giving away for free. Moving into a $5,000 audit, that's going to be business size, right? If you've got multiple departments, if you've got a lot of complexity, if there's a huge amount of value that can be delivered to their business through AI, and you know this because of your specific vertical, then I move the price up to that $5,000 mark. I would absolutely say that there's no hard menu of prices, because you have to, as the business person, determine how much is this potential client willing to bear. And the $1,000 mark is what we've found is not unreasonable for the audit services that take a few days of time, and a few several hours of your time and a few days to deliver. Okay, Ed, will you cover how to approach these decision makers that converts into these audits and hence transformation products? Yes, absolutely. We'll cover that a little bit further down. Yes, Robert. So we typically do. We've found that we have the ability and we don't have as much time anymore because of our pivot to a SaaS product, to operationalize this process. That we no longer kind of go after those one solo entrepreneurs, two or three person. Um, that's not our target ICP any longer. We'll certainly take them on if they approach us, but our target is going to be those larger organizations where it takes a lot more time to get in with them, but the value is a lot higher once you get there. And we no longer do the dev delivery for ourselves. We have partners that deliver our dev for us, and so that frees up a lot of our time as well. So these are all great questions. Thank you all. So let's go ahead and get back into the framework here. And this is Robert, you had asked this on a DM, so wanted to get this covered in the presentation here. So, and we'll get to how to position yourself to these clients, but let's go through the framework first. So we approach it in a 5-phase process, right? And this is going to be, you can modify this based on your own individual way of operating. The client you're talking to, maybe some of this is not applicable, but here's the core way of approaching it, at least in our business, and that we productized into auditing. So you're still going to need to do, and let me put an asterisk right here. This requires work, right? So this is not something where you can sort of ask ChatGPT, do an audit for me, and get an output back that's worth anything at all, right? So there will be the need to go out and get documents. There will need to be interviews. There will need to be discovery calls. There will need to be contemplation and calculation on your part. So don't think that this is just something that you can sort of put one prompt in and it shoots out the audits that you can just start selling. So want to put the asterisks on this process. So starting off, you need to do at least a discovery call, right? So once you engaged with this client and they're now wanting to get an audit from you, you're going to want to talk to sort of the champion of that organization's AI initiative. Could be the owner, could be the general manager, could be an appointed person. When we start working with a client, we always require them to do a few things. Some are operational, but one is to appoint their chief AI officer, right? And we say it doesn't have to be someone super technically minded. It doesn't have to be someone in charge, but it has to be someone who's curious, who is bought into the process of AI transformation and can be the champion internally and a direct point of contact to help you to interact and interface with that company. If you are just working with the owner or one person, you've got to chase them around. It takes forever. So to find that one designated person who is their chief AI officer, we've found has been hugely beneficial. So you'll be doing discovery calls with them, with the owner, and any kind of person that is involved with the processes you're trying to identify opportunities with. So that could be managers, could be in sales, could be in marketing, could be in operations, could be in finance, depending on your vertical, right? That's going to change. And so this is going to be finding opportunities, their readiness. We talked about that assessment with Cosette's question. Are they actually ready to adopt? Which is a bigger problem than you'd think, right? That MIT study of 95% of AI projects failing, I think a lot of that comes from just the organization not knowing what to do with it once it's delivered. So that the true value is not shared. And so operationally it fails, not theoretically. So, and then process inventory and value chain analysis. So understanding their SOPs, their operating manuals. Again, this comes from documentation. Could be financials, could be marketing information. This is going to, again, depend on the type of organization you're talking to. But the more information you can gather, the better, right? The more granular you can get with your analysis. And then one of the biggest things with the audit is to identify quick wins. And we'll get into that as we go a little bit further down. But that's a huge opportunity, is not to delay the delivery for months, is to give them something that they can grab onto immediately after the audit so that you keep that momentum going, right? And again, you're not just looking for things that are automatable, right? Anything is automatable essentially, but it has to have business impact. So on revenue, cost, or customer experience, it has to be technically feasible. We got into a huge problem with that AI video platform that we talked about. Turns out that we were on the bleeding edge of that technology at the time. It took us way longer than we thought to get what we promised. And so we ran into some big problems with that because we didn't look at the technical feasibility before closing the project, the contract. Next thing is the change management complexity. Um, will they adopt it? Right? Is there leadership that wants this to be done, or is this just some department buying a tool that's going to sit on the shelf? So understanding their willingness to want to move in this direction, right? Are people afraid for losing their jobs? That's going to take some coaching on your part. Also, an opportunity to do coaching, to do seminars, to do webinars, to do one-on-one trainings, right? So you can monetize that fear and monetize the ease of interacting with that organization by simply offering the service, right? And then the last thing is strategic alignment, right? So does this move their business forward? Is this something that they can say, I will be happy with doing this because I know there's a light at the end of the tunnel that I'm in right now? And the output for that phase, the discovery and assessment, and we'll get into some prompts and other tools in a minute here, is the current state assessment, right? It shows them exactly how their operation is running currently as it relates to AI opportunities. And keep in mind, you're not coming in and auditing their entire business. This is not an end-to-end audit. This is still focused on AI opportunities, right? So your expertise will lead the questions, will lead the conversation, and lead the request for documentation around areas where you know that AI can be helpful, right? Social media, client outreach, lead generation, customer service, finance and accounting, things like that. Second phase is we're going to go into the solution architecture, right? So now you've got the problems identified, right? And you're having meetings with them to do a check-in to present your findings. And now you have to lay out a roadmap for them to actually latch onto, right? How do I fix these problems you've identified? It's not enough just to say you have problems, give them a solution, right? So the key activities here are going to be AI workflow designs, right? So sort of wireframing out what that might look like, deciding on a tool stack, right? What tools do they already use internally? Do they have APIs? Do they have the ability to, from a security or data privacy, to connect into those tools? What tools will you use to connect them all together, right? The technical feasibility, integration plan. So not simply, oh, we'll do X to Y, is we're going to do X to Y through the process of this. And then the human in the loop design. So this has been extremely important for us, is allowing them to choose moments in AI automation processes where they want a human to interact with the automation and give approvals. This may not be required for everything, but it certainly is something that you want to offer to them, because that'll allay a fear they have of the AI is just going to go off and do whatever it wants, right? So you can offer up those human in the loop to give assurances, right? So the output for that is going to be your transformation blueprint, right? It shows exactly what gets built and why. So now you have your problem statement. You now have a blueprint of what you would want to build to provide that solution. Next case is going to be your business case development. And I think this is probably the most important. If you don't get this right, then there's no reason for them to buy it, right? It's just a cool thing. And we don't buy cool things for our business. We buy things that move the needle. So I'm going to pause here real quick and check if we have questions. Sam asks, is the audit process in auditing niche specific to different verticals or generalized? Great question. So yes, they are specific to certain verticals. I believe there are 10 or 12 industry verticals that the questions and the analysis that it produces bring best practices from those industries. So it is industry specific. I wouldn't say that we would market it as Audity is the AI transformation audit platform for lawyers. We would say the process is influenced by industry specific data points that are determined by the industry you choose for that individual audit. So good question. Okay, so talking about the business case development, and this is really what sells the project, right? You can do, and this is where you start to differentiate yourself. The first two are kind of agency work. That's going to be finding out the problem, though you're going to do it in a more structured way. And the second one is how you're going to deliver it, right? That's your bread and butter. But moving into the third is now where people start to get a little bit nervous, a little bit unsure of themselves, and where I really came from before I learned the technical side, which is the business case and change management. So, again, the business case is what sells the project. And these key activities are going to be ROI calculators, payback periods, present value of their investment, the internal rate of return, the IRR. And there's tools in Audity to calculate all these, and you can also just Google them. Cost benefit analysis, right? So what are they investing and what is their expected return, right? This can be in dollars, can be percentages, this can be quantitative or qualitative, right? More five-star reviews, higher lead flow, whatever it happens to be, quantify it. Next is going to be the risk assessments, right? A lot of fear out there right now about projects failing and a bunch of money just being flushed down the toilet. So going through like what risks possibly can come up, how you're going to mitigate them, and ways that you can ask the organization to help you to mitigate those risks through offering up the right resources, the right people, getting the right approvals. And then the implementation roadmap, right? The how and when. So as you're laying out this process, it's going to be quick wins first. We always want to focus on get them immediate value, right? So something you can deliver within the first few weeks, first month, whatever it looks like, but allow them to get a taste of the value you can provide through service delivery, as opposed to saying, oh, we're going to build you an end-to-end sales management platform, SaaS product, and it's going to take 6 months and it's cost $100,000, right? That's a very dangerous thing for them to go into with someone new. Whereas we're going to automate your after hours customer service. We're going to automate your LinkedIn engagement. We're going to automate some very targeted, very discrete, meaning beginning and end opportunity, and it allows them to get value very early. And then you have a roadmap laid out for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, up to a year, right? Any further out than that is you're really getting into the world changes, right? No tariffs, no war. So a year out is kind of like the runway you want to give yourself for development. And then there's an opportunity to revisit that then in your yearly review. So always want to have those touch points built in. Again, that's just talking to the business folks, right? So the output for this is going to be your business case, and that's what's going to get you budget approval, right? And if you're dealing with a single entrepreneur, a small team, maybe it's just the owner writes the check. That's fine, but they're still going to want to see this kind of CFO level language, right? And it's if you don't want to shy away from that. The next is going to be change management, right? So you're going to have a way to actually implement this into the organization in a way that allows you to have it be successful, right? So communication, stakeholder management, training, right? Either paid or part of the project, right? Bundling things together. It includes the project, the training, and the ongoing support. One price, easier. And then resistance management, right? Who have you identified during this process is going to be pushed back and be a troublesome person? Get ahead of that. That'll make your life a lot easier. And this is going to be a change management plan. I was also formerly a project manager, so this is something I'm very familiar with as well. Ask any questions about that. Um, and then the last is going to be execution and monitoring, right? So delivering and proving that value. You're going to be delivering that blueprint. You're going to be delivering that uh, dashboard design that's going to show them where they can track their ROI. You're going to do the implementation, testing, and validation. And then once your dev work is done, hand it off and have a sustainability plan in place. How are you going to maintain it, right? So you're not getting free calls. Hey, this broke. Let me fix it for you. So let's pause here. There's a bunch of questions, and I want to get into sort of how to get into the conversations. Okay. How did you build out your relationships with your delivery team? How do you stay on during that process phase, or do you hand it off fully? So we've spent a lot of time in communities, right? So we're obviously part of uh, Manny Kasani's community, Liam's community, Nick Serev's community, a lot of others where we're talking to these developers and people who may have excess resources and time that they can take on some dev work for us. And we'll still do a little for our own, but it's really just the same way you build really any relationship, right? Start small. Maybe you've got one aspect of a project or one thing that you want them to implement and just test them out, right? We haven't gone to Fiverr, we haven't needed to because there's so many people willing to do that technical work who want to move into this space. And we use tools like Airtable to do project management. And so there's always going to be uh, a set of tasks that have to be completed and deadlines. And we communicate typically through the movement of those tasks through the project management pipeline. I don't like to look over people's shoulders. I don't like people looking over mine. So if I trust you to do the work, then I allow you to do it. Now, that's not everybody's way of operating. And if you set that expectation one way or the other, either can be fine. To usually have a kickoff presentation you walk your champion through when you get a new customer. Um, Yes, but we don't want it to be a presentation necessarily, right? So a few slides are useful, sort of how we operate, the way that we're going to execute this plan, the resources and time we're going to need, and any questions that they have, right? We want this to be a conversation, not a homework list, right? You need to build that relationship with that person because they're going to be your internal champion, right? And if you lose them, you've lost the whole project, right? It takes a lot to get it back. So we don't want it to be, we're in charge, you do this for us. It's here's how we can work together to make this project successful, right? Align your goals, doing this work for the client, with their goals, looking good to their management, right? Always look how you can align your goals with the people you're working with. Okay. How much time from the customer do you usually request? So right off the bat, um, on the initial discovery call, we ask for an hour. And then that's going to determine once we dig into understanding their organizational structure, the number of stakeholders we're going to have to interact with, and the scope of the project, right? How much time do we think this is going to take? Then we'll set up a cadence, right? Certainly one meeting a week we like to have of up to an hour. So these people are busy to do check in and have a stable place where we can say, okay, when you come to this, we're going to need this rather than trying to chase stuff around. You at least have once a week where you're checking in, right? They want to know what's going on and you want to keep them bought in. Um, and then also it's that CAIO role, and so you're going to be asking more time of that person than necessarily the lead or the owner or the manager, right? So they're typically going to be someone who's been assigned to spend more time with this. But there's no hard and fast rule there. It's going to be if they have a ton of documentation and they can be like, hey, here's a data dump of every SOP, every org chart, e- easy, right? You can analyze that offline. But if they don't, you're going to have a lot of discovery calls with them, ask them a lot of pointed questions. How do you do this? Who does that? Who takes it from here to there? Think of the movie Office Space when they're interviewing Milton. And They say, walk me through a typical day. Do you take the engineering specs from the customer and give them to the engineers? Oh, well, no. Sometimes they fax them, or my secretary does it. And so you need to get into that detail if they can't provide it on documentation. So, okay, with Oddity, does the software walk you through the goals you need to achieve at each phase? Yes. We just did a major refresh, major redesign of the workflow and the UI UX, which was based entirely on feedback from current users. And they found it to be confusing, and they weren't quite sure where to go, when to go there, what was the first step, what was the last step. So we reimagined it based on one, what is the next thing you should be doing, right? It coaches you through that process. And that was a huge improvement for us. It took a lot of time and a lot of conversation and a lot of thought process. And we're continuously improving that, right? So as we get feedback, we implement it if it's aligned with the goals of our users. So good question. Okay, so let's go here. And if I don't get to your question, know that I will personally reach out to each one of you on DM and answer all the questions you might have. So this is also a good time to mention we have our AI transformation partner school community, which is where a lot of that conversation happens and a lot of questions may already have been answered. So I encourage you all, when you get this document that I'm going to share, go to there, get signed up. It's free. It's in school, and there's a thriving community of conversation there where we can have these conversations where the community can hear them, as we have them in real time. So we also do, both myself and my co-founder do webinars typically once a week, where we're doing Q&A, we're doing specific topics and areas that we can add value to that community. So I encourage you, if you're not already, jump in there and get acclimated. So let's go ahead and talk about lead flow. How do we get these clients, right? And I am not a lead generation specialist. I am not a sort of SDR specialist. I'm just going to disclaim that and say, look, I found what works for me. Um, and that's what I'm going to share here, right? There are other people who are way more qualified on this than I am. So, and again, I'm not here to sell a course on how to get leads, right? There, that exists. Um, but here's the biggest thing that I found is when I first started out, and until we made this shift to an AI transformation partner, we were talking our language and not the lead or the client's language, right? We were talking about product and technology and LLMs and automations and business improvement and all these things that are like selling a product or this nebulous concept of AI, right? And I think that's one of the biggest problems we have right now in the industry is everyone's selling AI, but what? What AI? How AI? Like, what is the business value that's being delivered through using AI? Why couldn't I just use any other standard automation off the shelf, right? And that's where you're going to add that value. Um, so it takes a little bit more time, honestly, right? So you can't just necessarily go out and blast out just cold openers like we offer a social media automation, and this is you should buy it, right? It's going to take some time to research the company. It's going to take some time to research the person you're reaching out to. But the value of these clients is so much larger that the value is there for spending that time, right? And the way that I approach is kind of twofold. One is I'm content first, so we're a content first marketing uh, plan, and I'm putting out lead magnets all the time. And those are not only getting the attention of people for our software, but it also gets the attention of second and third parties in the industry that may be in our vertical or maybe need our consulting services, which we offer on our website. Um, those a lot of times are reaching out to us once they see that expertise has been established, right? But we also do cold DM. We also do cold email a little bit. We've just started. And really, in that DM, you just don't pitch slap. And again, I'm not telling you something you already don't know, but it's more about showing that you actually spent even a few minutes understanding what they do and what their problems might be, and that you're not there to sell them on a product, right? But there to be a partner in their adaptation and their adoption of AI. So what we're not doing is talking about AI solutions. We're not talking about automation services, right? That's a sales pitch and that immediately gets you turned off. I can't stress this enough. Just have human conversations with human people. And that is going to get you so much further than 1,000 cold DMs. Like, there's the ability to scale, and that's great. But this is a little bit longer sales cycle to really get that trust built. Once you do, these are not turn and burn clients, right? So I'm going to share the DM templates. I'm not going to go through them each because that's just me reading to you. Um, in this document, they'll be linked below, to kind of approach it from each of these angles, right? The process analysis, the competitive insight, a cost calculator, strategic question. We like lead magnets, like the audit Ready Links assessment. That's been a huge win for a lot of people who are using it. Um, giving that value up front and while qualifying those leads. Right. So all of these templates have a few things in common, though, and I do want to touch on those. One is it proves you did your homework, right? That you understand the vertical you're in, you understand what their business problems might be, right? Which is takes some basic research, but understanding that, and building that credibility through content, through lead magnets, through white papers, through case studies, right? All of you should have those things. If you don't, get a one free client or something to get a case study, right? Get that proof that you can share because you're going to be asked what can you share. Um, the second is value, right? So you're going to surface a specific insight, and again, whether it be around process, around industry, around technology, that shows you have some value that you can deliver. And then the invitation for a low friction next step. So that easy yes. And again, we found that the ready links are what we use personally, because it's like, hey, here's a free mini audit and AI assessment. You take it, it gives you value immediately. You then get a qualified lead that you can follow up with to do the sale, right? And again, I'm going to share all this with you, so don't worry about that. We've got about 10 minutes left here, 9 minutes. Going to talk about a couple things, resources. And again, this is just the first in a series I'm going to do. And again, in the community is going to be a lot more conversation like this happening. So I know it was fast. There was a lot of questions I'm sure that I haven't gotten answered, but know that this is just the start. One, how to scale this model is, um, we like Audity. Obviously, that's my sales pitch. We built Audity. It productizes this process and steals our brain and puts it into your business. So if you want to try that, that's great. If you use the code webinar, you'll get a free month. So it gives you the opportunity to get in, get those lead magnets out, start sending those DMs, get a lead flow, start selling the audits, and use the platform. If it works for you, fantastic, you'll be a user. If it doesn't, no friction, no cost, you've tried it. Second is our AI transformation partner launchpad community, which is on School. That's again where we're sharing all of the resources that we put out. There's Q&A, there's other webinars, and those are going to be things that we can have a deeper conversation over time rather than just sort of a 1 hour webinar. Um, I do some private coaching, but I'm not doing it right now because of our product launch and how much time that's taking. But there may be opportunities in the future. But that's something that in Q4 we are not offering. So um, again, your next action steps: get the guides that are down below. You may already have some of them. The biggest thing is read the AI agency and transformation partner document that I wrote, which was an enormous lead magnet, probably the best one I ever had. Um, Tighten up on your vertical, update your LinkedIn to position yourself as a transformation advisor and not an AI agency owner, right? Start your outreach, right? Go through the 40-second AI audit opener. That's another guide that's linked down below. Goes a lot more in depth. Identify your prospects and get them out there and get get talking to people. So let me see what questions we've got here. Do you have a demo of how to use the actual platform for our first audit? Um, I don't have a video yet of that because of the redesign, but I'll drop a link for you to, if anyone wants to schedule a demo, do a 30-minute walkthrough. We'll go end to end, see how it fits in. Glad to do that. Doing a ton of those right now. So more than willing to do that. So Robert, I'll send you a calendar link, but also anybody else, I'll drop it in the chat right now. Um, Give me a second. Demo, share. There we are. I shared the Oddity demo link for anybody who wants to jump on that opportunity. Again, spend 30 minutes. Let's go through it. Let's answer your questions specifically. Couple questions that I got in the registration. So I want to cover a couple of those high points. And again, anybody asked the question that I didn't get to, I will DM you personally. Robert, we talked about the 5 pillars, and we can certainly discuss that more. How much time do you spend in actual client meetings? Right, we want to be respectful of the client's time, right? We don't want to tie them up in endless meetings just talking to talk, right? Sometimes we feel like the more we're in front of the client, the more they feel value, but that's a fallacy, right? You want to be delivering value in a tangible way, right? They don't want to talk about it, they want to see it done. They don't want to discuss what they feel about it. They want to have a roadmap that they can implement now, right? So action over conversation. Cosette in Baltimore, what makes an impactful audit? Um, I would say the biggest part for me is the roadmap, right? And that's going to show them exactly where they are now and where they could be in the future, right? And they're not really paying you to tell you what's wrong, right? They probably know what's wrong. And so they're paying you for the solution to how to get out of that wrong state, right? So an impactful audit is really going to focus on the roadmap and the opportunities matrix, right? Identifying what to do first, what not to do, because either it's technically not feasible, or it could be just something that's not going to be that impactful, right? They like, oh, I heard about this thing and I want to do it. And you're like, actually, I could sell that to you, but I don't think you should do it. And this is something that I learned at JP Morgan, was to sell away. A lot of times I would sell them away from one idea because that builds credibility for when you present your next idea, right? So take those opportunities. If it's not the right thing, lean into that and really show your expertise. Um, Rob from London, executing on getting leads that turn into business. Again, building that value over time, right? This is not something that you could just sort of cold DM all of a sudden and just get a bunch of paid audits, right? That middle ground, which is the low friction, high value, low friction, medium value, the assessment lead magnet, a case study, a white paper, something you can share with them that adds value, that gets the conversation talking, right? A pitch slap is going to get ignored. I get them all day. I actually have a way to categorize them as DM spam, and it drops them off of my list. So don't pitch slap, have conversation. Sam from London, profitable verticals and actual areas where businesses are allocating budgets to automate. So I would say pick a vertical. That people get caught up on niche. If you have experience or interest in an area, there's value that can be added, right? Now, obviously, if you're looking at dollars and cents, there are areas where it becomes uh, so things like finance, things like medicine, things like accounting, things like legal, right? You can command a higher price and a higher value for your work because there are privacy, data security, HIPAA, uh, client privilege. those questions are added on top of just, I want a social media manager automation, right? So if you can have some experience and know how to talk that language, you can command a higher fee. But know that if you just move into that higher fee area because you think it's higher fee and you don't have the chops to talk about that, and you're like, oh, we want to store all of your client, your patient data in a Google Sheet and do it by WhatsApp. Well, immediately I would recoil as the client and say, well, that's a HIPAA violation. Like if you don't know that, then how are you in this space? Right. So know your space before you decide. When you do, lean into that, you know about it. Let's see. Nikin from London. I hope I pronounced that right. What background or skills do you require? How can businesses trust you to transfer such an amount over? What resources or tools are required? We kind of talked a lot about this. Your background is going to be the background. You can't change that, right? So you can't go to the past and say, well, I want to get this experience. Not going to happen. So start today, build up your background, right? Two, skills. So one is going to be, you have to have the skills to actually deliver on the product or partner with someone. You have to have the skill of being curious, right? You're not just going to go in and get a bunch of documentation, stick it into an LLM, and get out a solution, right? You have to be at least curious enough to know what to ask for, what to gather, right? So understanding at least how businesses operate, right? What departments look like, what processes in their organization look like. Um, how can a business trust you to transfer such an amount over? Uh, well, that's answered in the previous question, right? You have to have credibility. You have to seem trustworthy, and at the end of the day, it's all faith, right? You could trust someone, a family member, and they could give you some money and you can just run off with it, right? So there has to be a level of trust there, right? So having your branding on point, having your messaging on point, and just not giving them a reason not to trust you, is it goes a long way. And resources or tools, obviously, ChatGPT or Claude, if you're going to run the prompts on the documentation and discovery calls on your own, or a tool like Audity is great. I don't honestly know if there are any competitors to Audity. I'll be honest, I look at it and I can't find one. So if there is, great, use that. But I don't think that there is right now. Craig from Saskatoon, increasing efficiency of the audit process and breaking through the noise. So again, these questions are causing me to pitch. I'm sorry. Audity, that's a way to systematize your process, right? One thing we found early on is the reason we built this as a internal tool before it went to a full SaaS product was we had no process by which to run these audits. And it was just fly by night, guess what happens next, and it was a disaster. It's just too complicated of a process to just wing, right? You either need to have a process on your own or use a tool like Audity. Um, Mark from Arlington, looking for a better way to get discovery engagement. Been too generic and it's not working at all. Again, adding value, right? If you're just DMing someone and asking for their time, which is really the only thing of value in the world is time, right? You can get money, you can get things, you can get whatever you want, but you can't get time. No one can. Elon can't get more time. So you need to give them a reason to give you some of their most valuable resource. People look at money and say, well, how am I going to get them to trust me to transfer over this amount of money? To a business person, the money is nothing. It's, do they trust you enough to give you their time? And that's built through delivering that value as soon as possible and as much as possible up front, right? And those ready links is a great way to do it. Here's an assessment you can take to see if your organization is ready. When you're done, if you have questions, we can follow up and talk about it, right? Boom, now you're in discovery call. Boom, now you're selling into the audit. A few more minutes here, and then we're gonna have to go. I have another demo for a user, which is great. Um, Understanding the full audit process and how to price our services. We touched on both of those. Again, those are very deep questions that cannot be answered in 30 minutes, 45 minutes. So jump into the community. We talk about it there and give you an opportunity to ask more detailed questions about your specific scenario. Um, Sudhir from Dover. how to use Oddity. We won't have time to go through it. I can do another demo another time if you guys be interested. Let me know. Pitch deck to propose the AI audit offer. Those will be in the community. I believe that Jeremy, my co-founder, has that up there. And case study in real estate and logistics. Case studies also in the community, but those are being added over time. How to deploy audits in the AI enablement work I'm kicking off right now. Matt from Decatur. I don't know that I understand the question. Matt, DM me separately and we'll talk. Okay, kind of had a ton of information there, ton of questions. I appreciate everyone. Let me drop the community link in the chat here. And then also, I'm going to send an email to everyone to follow up with the document we went through very quickly. I apologize. Links to all of the resources I talked about. Here is the Audity promo code is webinar. And the recording of this so you can review it and then hit me up with questions later. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time. I know that's the most valuable resource that you have. So I hope it's at least opened up the conversation that we can hopefully continue over the next period of time and as we get into the community. So I thank you truly to each one of you for your time and have a good day. Bye.